Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hard Rim. I'm Travis Bruce, and today I have a special guest with us. He is a artist as well as an author, and he has a new feature out right now that is called Salmonella Smorgasbord. I have with us Mark Stafford. Mark, welcome to the Horror Realm.
Happy to be here.
Now, tell my viewers a little bit about Salmonella Smorgasbord. By the way, I love the name.
Yes. Cheers. Well, I'm a cartoonist, and I do loads of little different. I've done 3 big graphic novels. I did 4. Well, I did 1 with Brian Talbot and 3 with David Hine. And those are the big, long projects. But always at the same time, I've done little bits and pieces, 10 pages here, 3 pages, and little stories. And about 20 years ago, I collected a bunch of those into a small press comic and called it Botulism Banquet. And I joked at the time that if I do another collection, it needs to be called Salmonella Smorgasbord to follow up that. And this has come to pass. John Anderson at Soaring Penguin Press said, do you want to put out a book of all the other stuff? And we collected it, and it got published like midway last year. And then, since then, I've been, touting the thing around. So it's 250 odd pages of all the weird little bits and pieces I've done, little 4-page strips, illustrations, beer labels, theatre posters, 1 mural I did for a library, 2 adaptations of English folk songs, and quite a lot of creepy business, because that's generally where I live. In terms of content, I suppose. If you're drawing a Venn diagram of creepy and funny, I'm hoping I'm in that thing there.
Right in the middle. Yeah. Now, how do you come up with the ideas or the inspiration for your stories?
All over the place. I mean, I can generally say the top deck of a bus is normally good after a night out. It's normally some idea that gets into your skull and wiggles around. But most of the time, you make notes of ideas. But it's the ones where you can suddenly picture that and you can go, hang on, that's 4 pages. I can turn that into a thing. Those are the ones that get kind of done. But they are... So there's a story in there called Accentuate the Positive, which is horrible. And it's 4 pages of people basically. It's because Alison Brown, the late great Alison Brown of the Cartoon Museum, she'd been given a bunch of stock by potential stock for the Cartoon Museum shop, and one of them was this inspirational quote calendar. And she went, look at this, and I started flicking through it, and it was all these like positive messages, and it drove me nuts because I hated them because they're all absence of content. Yeah, they're all like that movie Eat, Pray, Love. It never seems to accommodate the fact that your ability to sort of change your life might actually resolve around, I don't know, your financial circumstances or anything like that. And it just drove me nuts. So I just started leafing through this thing and thinking, well, what if the people saying these were in horrible, being beaten up by cops, or in the middle of a flash flood, or something horrible is going to happen to him in prison, or whatever. So that's basically those 4 pages. I picked 4 inspirational quotes and then put them in the mouths of people who were normally about this close from dying, and whatever. And hopefully the contrast between the two is where the very dark humour lies. I mean, other times it's, I think the longest story in there, I got asked by the British Council to go to Busan in South Korea and do work with the Kankenji Arts Village, and I was supposed to collaborate with a singer-songwriter, and then I went all the way to South Korea, and it turned out the singer-songwriter didn't want to collaborate, and so the Arts Village just kind of went, well, what can you do for us then? And I went, well, I guess I'm telling you a story. So I kind of came up with that. In that one's kind of a 24-page love story that takes in the kind of history of Busan and the history of the Kankenji Arts Village, the Kankenji area in Busan, which is where they used to make ships and stuff like that. So all of them come from, stuff that's happened to me or stuff that's happening in my life or whatever. I mean, there's 2 in there that are just straight out horror stories written by David Hine, and a load of creepy stuff just by myself. It's those little things that kind of stick in the back of your head and go, there's something there. There's something there that you can turn into a visual and an image, and you can see characters saying things and whatever.
Now, listen, I've had the pleasure of reading SALMONELLA, SMORGASBOARD, some of it, and it's some pretty dark shit in them. Now, do you ever think to yourself, like, rereading some of your stuff, or you're like, whoa, how are these fucking fucked up images able to pop in my head?
Kind of. I don't think I'm that, well, compared to a lot of people. I don't know. I mean, like I said, if you compare me to, I don't know, Josh Simmons comics, I'm Mr. Sunshine, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's also the thing that all of these are little 2-page, 4-page, whatever things, are often produced with gaps in between. But in between that, I've been doing workshops for kids to colour in at the Cartoon Museum, or I've been doing like an academic comic or whatever. It's when they're collected into one chunk and you go read them en masse, you start going, oh boy,
yeah, like what's going on here?
Like, even myself or whatever, just going, But I think for the most part, it's just that partly that's when my brain goes for, that's what I think funny is. It's like the worst case scenario. In most, like sort of, what's the most terrible thing that could happen or whatever, is I continually go there for kind of entertainment or whatever. So I'm not necessarily presenting this as a great worldview or anything like that. It's just, this is what I think works as a comic, and this is what I want to draw on whatever. And so I think, what's it? It's like happiness writes white is what they said, or what types what you can't. It's a difficult thing to do. I think Peter Bagg, the cartoonist, said, if you want to describe how lovely a tree is, you write a poem. But if you want to talk about what an asshole your gym teacher is, you draw a comic. And it's kind of, there is something within cartooning that leans, at least in my head, towards the negative, or leans towards I think comics are at their best when they're attacking something, or cartooning is at its best.
Yeah,
when it's attacking something rather than trying to go hooray, or like up our side or whatever.
But do you ever wonder, like, do you ever think to yourself, like, while you're coming up with an idea or brainstorming, like, oh, this is a good idea, but this might offend people?
Not so much. I don't think so. I keep getting asked this more and more because people are obsessed with the idea of being cancelled and stuff. I've never really thought about this because I generally think, I'm probably fooling myself, I generally think most of my ideas are all right. They're not like, coming from a totally horrible place, or at least they're criticising the right things. Mm-hmm. I think there's a few kind of illustrations I've done where I'm looking back and going, yeah, if you don't, like, context-wise, you need a lot of context for this thing, and standing on its own, I'm kind of hoping nobody digs that out of the closet and goes, like, sort of,
Because right now in the year 2024, like, it seems like creators have to put trigger warnings on their books and their materials because I don't say getting canceled, but like, because I'm about to get canceled for what I'm about to say, but like, people are so easily triggered now. People are so easily offended, and this is me personally. I'm not a creator, but I'm like that has to affect with the actual creator's creation. Yeah. If you're having to filter your masterpiece.
I think one of the best answers to this I've ever heard was the Japanese cartoonist Junko Mizuno. She was at the Lakes Festival, which is a great little comics festival in the Lake District in Britain every year for a few years now. And somebody in the audience, because she does like really cutesy looking graphics, and then if you read her comics, they're horrible. People are like sort of eating other people and being destroyed and whatever. And she just had this, question. One of her comics featured this female character that had eaten her boyfriend or something like this. And the character, and that somebody put their hand up and asked from the audience, aren't you, worried about somebody being offended, or like, isn't this like a horrible idea or something like that? And they just passed the mic to her, and she sat on stage and she just kind of shrugged and went, "I'm not Walt Disney," and that was it. And I kind of think the same. It's like, well, if you're picking up Salmonella Smorgasbord, you're not picking up a Pixar movie. You're not picking up. I'm not a multinational corporation trying to sell you stuff to your kids. I am what I am, and you ought to be able to do. It's kind of like going to if I don't know, if you're watching like sort of something in the middle of the TV schedules at 7:00, and some comedian comes on and says horrible things, they're going to get a ton of stuff. If you go to a comedy club, all bets are off. You've paid money to go to a comedy club, whatever. I think more people should think of their comics like that. Is, especially with the small press and independent stuff, the only thing we have, we're not dealing with IP, other people's IP. We're not, like trying to get that kind of mass audience, or we won't be straining for it or whatever. The only thing you have is your own distinct flavor, or your own weirdness, or your own whatever selling point you have from whichever dregs your brain is coming up with it from. You're not Disney, essentially, and all of my favorite cartoonists are pretty much like that. I don't think Dan Clowes for a minute thinks about, or he might think about perhaps this is too far or something slightly. But for the most part, I think he's quite, like most of my favourite cartoons are quite confident in the fact that, no, I'm telling a story, it's offensive in this way, but it's defensible because I'm trying to detail the thoughts of an asshole, or I'm trying to do this or whatever. And you have to deal with the fact that certain people aren't going to get that. You're going to go, you have a character saying a horrible thing, and you're allowed to just shrug and go, yes, they're a horrible character.
Yeah, it's entertainment. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's entertainment, and like I don't know where that's come from, because I mean, especially when you delve into horror. Horror has always meant to be offensive. You know what I mean? It's horror. It's supposed to be offensive.
Yeah.
On different categories.
I mean, horror is there are many rooms in the horror mansion.
Exactly.
And you can say like your classic ghost story. That's one thing. But Stephen King had that list of ways that horror works, and one of them is the gross out. And he said, I'm not proud of it, but occasionally I'll just do that. Occasionally I'll just do the most grotesque thing or most horrible thing or whatever. But if you're dealing with what makes people scared, or what offends people, a lot of the time it's not something polite or what. If you look at most urban myths, they're it's like they are often dealing with like fears of basically foreign people or new technology or whatever. They're not coming from nice places. They're coming from this really basic, brutal thing. And I'd hope as a creator, you kind of look at that fear and go, well, where's that coming from? And find a more way to deal with this that isn't so brutal and isn't so reactionary and whatever. But be aware that, that's what, that's a lot of times where horror comes from, or where fear comes from, or, especially if you're talking about things like urban myths and moral panics and things like that. It is sort of unpleasant business generally. It's something like, apart from the obvious things like fear of disease and death and, mutation and madness and whatever. I mean, that's mostly the meat and drink of this thing. I was talking yeah, on Lip Hook, the book I did with David Hine, one of the three. Yeah, we subtitled it "A Tale of Rural Unease," and I really liked that. Unease, that's what I subtitled myself, Uneasy Cartoonist. And a lot of my favourite bits in horror movies aren't necessarily the stuff where, like the knives are out and the nasty stuff is happening. It's normally the first about 40, 50 minutes where something's gone horribly wrong and a lot of the characters aren't noticing it yet. Yeah. But you're kind of... It's like in The Birds, where Tippi Hedren's kind of clocking things that other people aren't... there's some tension building up, but you're not quite sure where it's coming from. Well, because the title of the movie is The Birds, it's pretty much going to come from the sky. But, the nature of it or whatever, or,
It's the build-up.
It's the build-up. It's those little bits of information where that little feeling in the back of your head of, uh-oh. And a lot of the time in real life, there's that feeling, I don't know, you're standing on a train platform or something, and there's this like riffle goes through the crowd where suddenly people, there's been some delay, something horrible's happened, there's a crash or something like that. And there's this kind of woof that goes through the crowd before you've got any solid information yet. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't know, I kind of like that. So a lot of the stuff I try to put in Salmonella Smorgasbord isn't kind of outright something nasty happening. It's trying to generate that feeling of, it's kind of like a comedy thing as well. Just all your social cues are off, mm-hmm. and somebody's doing the wrong thing, and their smile's going back too far, and that kind of business. I love all that. That's mainly what I'm about, I think. I mean, partly, as I say, because I find it funny, but partly because I think that's the state we're living in right now most of the time.
It is.
Yeah.
It's scary but funny at the same time.
Yeah.
Scary but funny at the same time.
Yeah.
Now you have definitely illustrated and even told the story of many of characters' demise in your work.
Yeah.
What is the one way that you've killed a character that you're like, fuck, I wouldn't want to die that way?
Well, a lot of the time, that's David Hine, who's a much sicker man than I am, and it's terrible. But that he had in the bad place, he had two boys buried up to their necks in the sand, and then being pecked to death by crows. And we both, and I don't know if he came up with that. And then about 6 months later, we saw these stills for a movie called The Painted Bird. I think it's on Amazon Prime at the moment, but I haven't actually pulled the trigger on it yet. And there's a kid buried up their neck in the sand, and there's a bird looking at it, and you're going, "Oh my god!" It's like, somebody did that thing. I'm not really a kind of a torture porn kind of guy, but I think that's in all of us. I definitely remember as a kid on the playground, that'd be like that thing if you're like sort of 8 or 9 or 10, and you'd have a conversation between you and your mates about what would be the worst way to die. And it would normally involve being injured horribly and then somehow lots of salt and vinegar getting involved. Yeah. Also in whatever was going on, that kind of business.
Because I can imagine in most ways, so I'm a mortician, that's my day job. And so I've seen people die in probably every possible way ever. But a lot of the ways people die, like you think are horrible ways to die, like somebody cutting your head off, you really don't feel that type stuff. You know what I mean? You really don't feel that stuff. But like, it's the shit that fears me. It's the shit that where you linger. You know what I mean? Where it's prolonged. When, like you said, the torture porn stuff, where somebody's just torturing you.
Yeah.
And like you're still conscious and you're feeling it. Yeah. That is the fucked up shit.
Yeah. There's that horrible episode of, was it Homicide? A Life on the Streets, and they go to the detectives get called out to a tube station, an underground train station, mm-hmm. and they're talking to this guy, and some guy's pushed him underneath an underground train, and it's Vincent D'Onofrio. He's guest starring in this episode, and he's like so angry about this and whatever, and going, God damn it, why won't somebody rescue me or something? And they're going, and they're interviewing him and saying what happened and whatever. And it's only at a certain point somebody goes down underneath the train and they realise his legs are in the other direction. And he's not, whatever he's doing, being alive, talking at the moment, is not going to continue for much longer. I was just going, oh my God, that's the most horrible.
That's horrible.
That is like absolutely grotesque and whatever. Yeah. Yeah, there was an episode of that where the coroner went to like a coroner's convention, and they start spotting stories of like, what's the worst thing you've seen, or whatever. And I'm just like I say, Dave Hines got much better appetite for this. I mean, normally any real world stuff. I think I had a kind of in my 20s, I wanted to see Stan Brackage's movie, The Act of Seeing with One's Own Eyes, which is, his art house autopsy movie. And I wanted to see, Cannibal Holocaust and all this kind of extreme stuff. Well, as life has gone on and pain hurts more, yes. And every time you fall over these days, it's not, you're taking longer to get back up.
Yes.
My appetite for actually watching anything that's just about pain and suffering or whatever, no. I'm just, I'm
the same way.
Yeah, I can't do that.
I like quick, fast kills now that I'm 41. Like, I cannot do the torture porn stuff. Like, that's why I'm not a huge Saw fan. Like,
no,
that shit makes me so. And listen, it's successful at what it does, but I cannot watch Saw movies. It's hard for me to watch because I put myself out. They do a great job of I'm putting myself in that fucking situation where I know my demise is coming and I can't do nothing about it. Yeah. I find, and it's a weird thing. I said I don't like the Saw movies. I'm pretty much sure I've seen every one of them. Me too.
Where's that thing with like streaming? It's just like these things pop up and you go like, well, it's somewhere within my ballpark, so I will check it out. And I find them. There is something kind of funny about the Saw movies in that the world they depict is so ludicrously doomy and everybody's so corrupt and everything's grimy or whatever. And you're kind of like, anybody in these things go jog on a beach at any point? There's just this absurdly sort of like grimy worldview. So no matter how nasty they get, the fact that they seem utterly unreal because nobody's got a really good sense of humor in them for a start.
No.
They sing, and the best of the Saw devices, the one where like the pig's being cut off and like thrown up this, and it is so absolutely over the top and grotesque. I was kind of going like, I don't like this, brother, that is disgusting. The liquidized pigs is absolutely disgusting.
But I'm sitting there like most of the song. I'm sitting there like, do some of these people? Yeah, some of them deserve what they're getting. But I'm like, some of these people, like the lady who is a secretary at the pharmaceutical company stealing people's money. Yeah. What does she deserve to fucking get her fucking head chopped? It's a fucking job. She's trying to feed her fucking kid. I mean, like, listen, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure most of us work for companies who probably do bad shit. They probably do. Majority of us work for companies. Any big corporation, they do fucked up things. You know what I mean? But if you're on a low level of the fucking totem pole, why the fuck do you deserve to be fucking killed?
Anybody working in retail for a huge company, leave those people alone. They're suffering more enough.
Exactly.
Hard enough. And also, how good is Mr. Jigsaw's bloody research on these things or whatever it goes? You grew up there and you like sort of turned over this investigation and whatever. And I'm waiting for one of them to go, no, actually that was Frank. It's like I know the investigation pointed out this thing, but ask any cop, and that wasn't that situation or whatever, and just because he's absurdly right all the time, and I know that's the nature of the franchise, but I keep waiting for somebody to go for at least one of Jigsaw's victims to go like, no, I wasn't that. I didn't do that.
Exactly. That wasn't me. I'm a temp. I just started here yesterday. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Listen, I was looking for a job. The temp agency called me and said, "Do you want this job?" I said, "Sure." I didn't know that they were sex trafficking kids or something. I didn't know.
Or wakes up with some horrible device attached to her head, and she goes like, "I know what's happened here. They see there's 2 Jenny Sawyers who work for that corporation."
I agree. Listen, it bothers me. I'm like, boy, one of the things about the movie, I'm like, boy, does the punishment fit the crime for a majority of these people who are victims? And that's why it just bothers me. I'm like, does the secretary for a piece of shit scam company deserve to have her head fucking splitting off? Not really. I mean, she's a secretary. She doesn't know what the fuck's going on.
She's at the cold face of capitalism, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we all
just trying to make rent. She's probably not proud of it.
We all work for shitty fucking companies that if you work in corporate America, you are working for a company that does bad things.
Yes,
plain and simple.
Somewhere up the line.
In order to be a millionaire or a billionaire in this world, you did some fucked up things to get there.
Yes.
There's no such thing as hard working. No. You did some fucked up things and you slit some people's throats on a way to get to that process. You skipped the line.
There's who's the quote by? Every fortune hides a crime. I can't remember who said that. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's how you're successful. That's how you become successful in this world. You gotta do some fucked up things. Now here's the key. Once you get that fortune, you can start doing good things, but most people don't.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it was somebody said the Forbes list or whatever, you know, of God knows how many, the under 30 billionaires or something, and they went like so. And how many of them are self-made men? And it was almost none of them. It was like most of the percentage was like, how did you get to be a billionaire at the under 30? My dad. That's essentially.
And then if you follow
the dad had probably done some horrible stuff, or their hedge fund,
yes,
some horrible stuff.
Or the fucking mafia or something. Like, no, everybody who has money in this world, it may have not been them, but generations ago they did some fucked up things to get here, and that's how you.
Or in this country, the like the royal family, or you know, like the. So, like the richest man in this country, I think, is the Duke of Westminster, because this guy who owns most of the famous bits of London are actually owned by one guy. You know, all the stuff in the West End, and you know, whatever, are all actually owned by this guy, the Duke of Westminster, and he's had it, you know. And somebody else like, so what did you do to become this successful? And he goes, well, essentially, you know, my family did something for, you know, like back during the Battle of Hastings, my family were on the side of William the Conqueror, you know. Essentially, like they gave him a bunch of land because of that, and over the years, that land has become successful. That guy has done nothing to earn that, or whatever. Richest guy in the country.
Yeah.
But I like his upfrontness about it. It's like, actually,
it's honest.
He's not going to claim he was a self-made man who was, you know, pulled himself up by his bootstraps or whatever. He's just going to go.
Yes, I mean, I even love like people who are real estate investors who are honest. Like, the reason I became a millionaire from doing real estate investment is because I kicked a bunch of poor people out of their houses, bought the houses for half the price, and then. Once the areas change, once we get all the poor people out, now we can go ahead and start moving in rich people, and then boom. I mean, that's how you do it.
Yeah. I know it's got that weird thing of like whenever they do people who earn huge amounts of money in show business, and they're going, who's the billionaires or whatever, they almost never got their money from show business. They got like the seed money from being, you know, doing their music or doing the movies or whatever. After that, it's almost always real estate or whatever.
Yeah.
And always, you know, like, because people, when they say, you know, like, you criticize billionaires, but you don't criticize these rich people, pointing to musicians and actors and whatever. And they go, those are different levels of rich.
Different.
I think Paul McCartney's become a billionaire after having been in the Beatles and 50 years later of accumulated like cash from all that he did.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a while to get up to that stratospheric level if you're actually some kind of creator. It's not, and it's definitely not for anybody working on my level. You know, I'm part of the Society of Authors. I think they did a survey. I think most writers get about 12 grand a year or something from their efforts in writing. And then normally most artists, most writers, most actors are just about coasting by on their artistic efforts and have to have something else on their own side. Normally just they're married to somebody who's got a proper job to actually survive, you know.
I mean,
it's a lot of comics, you know.
I mean, as a creator, I mean, even as a YouTube creator, it takes a. I don't think people realize how much time consuming it is, but you also have to have that full time job. You also have to have that second career to live off of, because this stuff is great. I mean, you make some money off of it, but it's not enough to survive off of.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Was it Brian Talbot? You know, who's just won San Diego Comics Convention, just got a Lifetime Achievement Award. Him and his Mary Talbot, his wife's book, won a Costa Award. He's like really fated, worked in the undergrounds, worked for DC, you know, whatever. Definitely survived for a lot. He had the time to do his most fated graphic novels because Mary worked in academia and had a regular, decent paycheck coming in, which meant that he could like work for months really hard on graphic novels that did eventually pay off. You know, it made sense in the end, but if he was just relying upon that, you know, the money from, I don't know, Dark Horse or whatever, nah. Yeah.
All right, so Mark, where can everyone find you, my friend?
Okay, I am on, like, you know, Twitter and Instagram and whatever as Mark Stafford. So that's MarxTafford on Blue Sky as that as well. I do have a website, but it's just a landing page at the moment called hocusbaloney.com. But that will just redirect you to my Etsy shop and my my Instagram, I think. But the Instagram is what I use as a portfolio. I'm also on things like ArtStation and whatever. And, you know, Lip Hook and The Bad Place and Cherubs and Salmonella Smorgasbord are all available from wherever you can get them. You know, Amazon and better places than Amazon, which is most places.
Talk about billionaires, yes.
Yeah.
Well, listen, everyone, get over to Instagram and follow Mark as well as on X/Twitter or whatever it's called. And also, grab your copy of Salmonella Smorgasbord. You found on that place called Amazon or anywhere better than that. Mark, it's been a blast having you on, brother.
Okay, cheers, fella. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all, man. Anytime. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that is Mark Stafford. We'll see you next time. Take care.